Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are here in Maui, Hawaii, and my name is Federal Postal Judge David-Wynn-Miller. I punctuate my name with a full colon because it creates a prepositional phrase. I use a hyphen to make my David Wynn a compound fact, and then I follow that with a full colon to identify my surname, which is Miller. So it's for the David Wynn of the Miller family, because full colons are prepositional phrases to express a fact. You also use it in your digital time, your full colons. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to have 5 different segments here. And we're going to go through the parts of speech and explain what the parts of syntax are when it comes to writing. We are then going to explain how the parts of a sentence are constructed. Then we're going to go to the way that the federal government has created over 40 million mortgages under the fraudulent conveyance of language under the laws of Title 18, 1001, and Title 15, Section 1692E under false and misleading statements, Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under coloring of the laws. And we're going to explain the sentence structure from the mortgage and how it is used as fraud. We're going to explain the sentence structure used by the attorneys to support the mortgage, how they are using fraud. And then we're going to explain how the banking system uses your money to make you both the borrower and the lender. So they don't have the jurisdiction or the venue to foreclose your property, only be a servicing agent for that conclusion. So what we're going to start with first is the parts of speech. Now the parts of speech are, we're going to use a numbering system 0 through 9. The numbering system is to identify each part of speech and how it appears between one word and another. And when we take documents and we go ahead and we put the numbers on top of the words, it's because to write the words out, to write the parts of speech word out on top of the words would take up too much time and would be too confusing. So we use a number substitution, which we will go through. Now we use 0 as a conjunction, and there's 2 conjunctions in the English language. And is a command, and the word or is an option. Now the word, the adverb, we gave a 1 because the adverb is used more than any other word, and the adverb is a modifier. It modifies the speed of which something is going to be modified at. Now the adverb will modify a verb, which is thinking or motion. So when you have a 1 in front of a 2, it's an adverb creating a verb. Now 3 is used for an adjective because an adjective represents color, opinion, and modifier, or modification, which means you're going to change something or try to influence an individual's ability to think by coloring it. If you color something and you change it, you're actually committing perjury because you're injecting your own prejudice or your opinions based on how you're going to describe it. And the word describe, de means know, ascribe means to write. So you're changing the condition to create a no written document. Now the adjective will always appear in front of a pronoun, just like we have the word black. Black is a fact. The word pen is a fact. You put black in front of pen and it means black pen. Black is an adjective. And it prejudices the word pen. You could use the word cobalt or carbon pen, because carbon is black, and it also is a shade of black. There's 1,200 shades of black, so you can basically say there's 1,200 ways to modify the word pen by just using one color, and color is an infinity of an opinion. Now, in the presentation of these numbers, the positional lodial fact, which is 5, 6, and 7, the position of a word identifies using the ABC alphabet. Now, this is between two individuals. When they come together, they have to agree on what alphabet they're going to use. If we were in China, we'd be using the Chinese alphabet. If we were in Russia, we'd be using the Russian alphabet. Or in France or Germany, or if we were in Arabic or Indian. So the communication skills have to be established as to what alphabet you're going to be using. Then you have to take that alphabet and spell out your word. Now, if we're going to use the English language, this would be a pen, P-E-N. If we're going to write it in Hawaiian language, it would be called a penny, P-E-N-N-Y. If we're going to use it in Spanish, it would be called a scribola. So the spelling of the word would then change. And then we have to give a term to the word spelling and identify what the pen is used for. The pen is used for writing. So we're going to give it a definition that both persons agree upon in order to communicate with each other. Now, the position is always followed by a condition of lodial. Now, lodial, L-O means location, D-I is original, and A-L is contract. That's called the parse of a word. Now, if we're going to say for my pen, for your pen, for her pen, for his pen, for our pen, every time I change the lodial position of ownership, I change the definition of this pen. If I say for your pen, for my pen, for her pen, for his pen, I'm changing the preposition, the position, and I'm also changing the ownership. So therefore, the fact is going to continue to change. I can do this 900 different ways because there are 68 prepositions and 38 articles. When you multiply those out, they come to 2,000. Divided by 2 is 1,000, minus about 100 words that would never come together and be used in a logical explanation. So therefore, there's about 900 logical explanations to identify this one object. When you take two objects using a prepositional phrase and you bring them together, now you have for the black of the pen, or for the pen of the black. You have black, which is a fact, and you have pen, which is a fact. Well, 900 times 900 is 810,000 variables that you can write this combination into. When you add a third word to this, for the black of the pen with the writing, now writing would then become a condition of a fact. And now we have 900 times 810,000 gives me 720 million. For the black of the pen is with the writing on the paper. Now we have four words. 900 times 720,000 is 640 million variables. So you can see this can become a very large, complicated document when you're going into a mathematical certification to create a correct prepositional phrase or a correct structural sentence. Now, number 8, the 5 of a position always comes in front of a 6, which always comes in front of a 7, which is a fact. Now, when we went to school, they taught us to use a preposition, pre meaning no position. An article, which is spelled A-R-T, which is a vowel and two consonants, which means no contract. So if you had no position and no contract, you'd have a noun, N-O-U-N, which is no-no. Now, if you have a no-no, you have nothing. So they lied to us when they went to school. So we had to create a new paradigm of communications called the position lodial fact. The next factor was the past time and the future time. 8 comes, the past always comes before the future, and 8 always comes in front of 9. So it was a natural phenomena of the way that the numbers fall in, because an adverb comes before a verb, an adverb comes in front of an adjective, the adjective comes before the pronoun, the position, the lodial, and the fact are always kept together as a 5, 6, 7, and the past always comes in front of the future. Now, the past can be a word used as from, or the word, any word ending in ed would represent a past. If you have when we went to school, they taught us that a sentence must be one thought. So we have a one venue or one condition of thought, which is the correct parse syntax grammar. However, in the world of fraud, which means you're going to have going to the store from the house. Now we have two different time factors of from and to, which is now a lie because now we have two conditions of time and it's no longer a single thought sentence. So this generates when you're into fraud, fiction, lies, perjury, false, guessing, presumption, assumption. Now on April 6, 1988, the mathematical interface on grammar was perfected by myself, and it was published. And 2 days after that, the United States Secret Service showed up at my door and said, "You realize what you've done? You've just disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract between 5,000 languages for 8,500 years. When the world learns of how this mathematical interface will correct the world, there will be a world reset on communication skills, banking, international contracts, trade agreements. And so it's going to impact the way the entire planet has to do business." Now, man has never gone to war over a math problem in the history of mankind. By bringing communication skills into a mathematical procedure where we have the values certified both frontwards and backwards in every single sentence that we write. Now, the second position we're going to do here is with the instructions on how a sentence is created. We use the preposition for to start every sentence in this program because for is the strongest of the positions to start a sentence out with. We've looked at all 68 positions and we've looked at all 38 articles. And we've reduced the program to the words a, and, the, this, these, but this is the lion's share of 99% of the prepositional of the articles that are used in our grammar. Also, the word an appears in front of any word that starts with a vowel. That's one of the exceptions to the rules. Now, when you're constructing a sentence, the rules and regulations of constructing a sentence are the same rules and regulations that even a fiction court must go through to establish an individual's ability to stand trial. So what we've done is we have perfected that all sentences that are used in every one of our documents, and we average about 60 to 100 different sentences. But each sentence qualifies under the rules of what a court has to establish in order to be a court. And the very first thing a court must establish is the word knowledge. Does the person have the knowledge to understand what is being said to them? If I was speaking to you in Japanese or Chinese or Russian and you only understood English, we wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. So therefore, we wouldn't have a knowledge communication between us. It would require us bringing in an interpreter to stand in and do the translations. But what we're doing here is the first thing that a court has to establish is your cause. What is the knowledge or educational limitations of all individuals in the courtroom? Once you have established that you have a knowledge, you then have a consequence, which would be of the. For the is your knowledge, of the is your consequence. And the consequence is going to be how many facts have you established through your knowledge. Once your knowledge is established as facts in your brain, it's like a computer. In order to bring any information out of your brain or out of a computer, you have to think. And thinking then becomes the verb of action. You have is as a singular and are as a plural. So the verb thinking now becomes these are the only two verbs in English languages, is and are. Running is not a verb. Jumping is not a verb. Driving is not a verb. Trespassing is not a verb. Parking is not a verb. You have to think before you can do these conditions of a fact. So when the sign says no parking, no is an adverb making parking into a verb. So they've lied because you can never create the negative condition of any state. You can't create the negative condition of a fact. So by saying no parking, that's an oxymoron, and it's against the law. Now, when you say against the law, that's a prepositional phrase. Against means no contract. The is an adverb. Against is a position. The is an adverb making law a fact. So if you're against the fact and you're using no contract or no trespassing, no is an adverb making trespassing a violation of the use of that is a condition of state. It should say, for the trespassing on this land is with the fee of the $5,000, or for the parking of the cars with the fee of the $500. These are performance contracts which are positive. If you have a positive performance contract, you then have the ability to say, I gave you a positive performance, you agreed to trespass, you agreed to perform, and therefore you have a duty through this performance contract. Now, after you establish your thinking capacity to move the fact backed up by the knowledge, you have to create a possessive. With is your position of a possessive. And the possessive is used, we use the word claim because gold miners filed claims. They didn't file mortgages. They didn't ask for permission. When they discovered gold, which starts with the word AU, they have an authority. And so they filed gold claims. Then they had to make a decision on to what the claim is. Is it a positive claim or a negative claim? Did they have a damage, which is negative, or did they have a equity, which is positive? The second part, now that you've established with as a possessive, you now have a contract term using of the. And now you're going to go ahead and take this possessive and you're going to put it into a contract term to define the plus or negative of that contract term. This sentence could be as small as seven words or 7 facts, or as large as a 200-word sentence, which I place in all my documents, just to show that when you're going through a mathematical procedure to get to the conclusion from the beginning of a fact, there is a path that you have to follow. Now, after you have a with of, you go back to another with, which is a possessive of the laws, rules, regulation, codes, duties. And then you have to assign the authorization of the word by. By is the position to give the authorization, the author, the authentic of who created this document, who wrote this sentence. And authorization always runs backwards. So the last word in the sentence becomes the authority. Now, if I read this sentence backwards, by would become for, and of would become with, and with would become of, because those are the opposite prepositions, just like over, under, in, out, through, around. So if I read this for and authority of the laws, rules, regulations, and codes, now I can go back up, pick up my verb is or are, with the contract terms of the possessive claim, with the consequential facts by the cause or the claimant's knowledge. In this case, we would have a claimant who would be the individual who would have the knowledge. So reading the sentence both frontwards and backwards has the same volition and the same sense as it did frontwards. And that's how you can certify that the sentence was written correctly in the first place. And what we do is, if you do grafting, now the easiest way to learn how to do sentence structure is to graft it by taking all your positions and isolating those. See, now I have all the positions. Now I have the same lodio throughout. The only exception here is and, because we're in front of a vowel. But if this is going to be the, then it's going to be gender neutral. If it's this, it'll be specific first person. If it's these, it'll be specific plural. So as you're using, you can use the word a, which is also specific plural, specific singular. You can say for a cause of a consequence is with a possessive of the contract with a law by an authority. See, if I change the article, the sentence still makes sense because the article is going to show you in ownership. Ownership specific, first person, gender neutral, or plural. But your prepositions are going to be your the correct way by which this is mathematically certified. And then the parts of speech, just to identify the order of operations of the parts of speech took me 6 years of research. It was buried in Cornell University's dictionary, which is 4 feet thick, containing every word of every symbol in all 5,000 languages in written history. That's why it's a 4-foot thick dictionary. It's cost $6,000 for that dictionary. But when I found out what the parts of speech were, if you go into a Styles manual, they'll give you one definition. If you go into your dictionary Styles manual, you'll get another definition. When you go into Cornell University's dictionary, you find out about the time of the future and the past, as well as the parts of speech and how they were used. Now, with 68 prepositions and 38 articles, we only use 7 of the positions and only 5 of the articles. And with that, we built this program. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this first sentence. This comes from the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac mortgage. It's on page 12 of the mortgage. And it contains 43 words. And I'm going to go ahead and syntax this using the number system on the chart here. Now, borrower is going to be a pronoun. Shall is going to be an adverb in the future time. So I give it a 1.9. Be then becomes a verb. So we give it a 2. In is an adverb making default to mean no fault as a verb. If now becomes a pronoun for any becomes an adverb making action ACT, a vowel and 2 consonants. So this becomes a no contract, because an act means no and ION is contract. So we have a no contract word used here as a verb. Or becomes a gender neutral, so that becomes a 0. Proceedings. PRO means no, and proceeding is used here as a pronoun followed by a comma. Whether becomes the adverb making civil to be a verb, or again is a neutral conjunction. Criminal also becomes a 2. Now the reason criminal here becomes civil, if we do whether criminal or civil, or whether civil or criminal, or becomes a neutral conjunction, that whatever number appears before it would normally appear after it if a comma is used. If there is no comma, and this was become, let's say the word civil or criminal procedures, then this would be a 2, or it would be a 0, and criminal procedures would be a 3 and a 4, because we would have a 2 compound facts. Is an adverb, yes, making begin to become a pronoun. No. This becomes a pronoun. Is begun becomes an adverb. That becomes a verb. In is an adverb making lenders possessive of judgment to now become a pronoun. Could is a future tense adverb. Results means no contract, used as a verb. In is an adverb making the word foreclosure. For means the word no, of closure. So if you have no closure, they're advertising that the contract doesn't use legal sentence structure. They're saying that there is no closure for the modification of grammar within this terminology. So your documents that you're in possession of become a verb, in this case, an adjective. Foreclosure becomes an adjective of the pronoun of. The is an adverb, modifies the property to be a verb. Now, PRO means no, PER is person, and TY is contract, no person contract. The reason they have a no person contract is if you look at your name on your mortgage, it's written in all uppercase spelling called a nom de guerre. The word nom de guerre means you're a dead person, and the synonym of that is pseudium. Or again becomes a conjunction. Other is an adverb, and OT means no, of her. Material is an adjective. In Perriman, IM means no, vowel two consonants again. ENT is contract, so you have no paired contract. That becomes a pronoun, no, no, no. Of is an adverb, making lenders possessive to be a possessive of the adjective interest and the pronoun if. Now interest, IN means no. TER is terra and EST is contract. So you have no earth contract when you have interest. As a result of our suing the mortgage companies, all the banks in the United States, and over 500 federal lawsuits filed at the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission, the new language is to drop the word interest and charge rent on all your borrowed money. Same thing as the Arab worlds do with their money, with the Muslim religion. The word the now becomes a adverb, modifies the word property. PRO is no, PER is person, and TY is contract, or is your conjunction. Rights is a pronoun. You have no rights. Now, when it comes to the word rights, I once said to a judge in 1985, I have rights. The judge says, a fox has a right to eat, and a chicken has a right to eat. Enough said about rights. Think about it. The word rights now becomes a pronoun. The word under means no contract. Under is an adverb, modifies the adverb this, and security becomes an adjective of the word instrument. IN means no. It's used also as a pronoun. STRU means from the word construction, and ENT is contract. So you have no construction contract. Why is that? Well, if it's a no construction contract written in adverb verb or adverb adjective pronoun, you have a color of security. Under now removes it from the plane of level playing field. So we can read this backwards, except for one small detail. There's no facts in the sentence. So where we started off with 43 words, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24. We have 57 mistakes out of 43 words in this sentence. So when we go to reconstruct this document, the document is actually saying that this is in error. You don't have a contract because all these words, when you look up the value of these words based on these numbers, you will not find a definition in the dictionary. Now, if you take, what is the lawyer going to do, or an attorney? The attorney is going to take this sentence and say, that makes sense to him, and we're going to go ahead and say that this is the fact, and we're going to file a complaint from an attorney. So we went ahead and we wrote up the attorney's answer. A true, which now becomes a verb. Truth is not a verb. It's a condition of state. And is a conjunction. Correct copy becomes an adjective pronoun. Of is an adverb, making which to be a verb. Is an adverb, making attraction to be a no attached. Is a no contract adjective. The ed is in past time, voiding the now time of hereto becoming a pronoun. As is an adverb, making exhibit to be a no contract. And because this is in quotation marks, exhibit A, it's been removed from the paper. Because the exhibit that they are presenting to the court is also void. The same thing as the lawsuit is void. Plaintiff, Emerson, purchased, ED, in this case, that's a pronoun. All is the adverb of all two consonants. Not only is the word all is a very unique word because it can't be proven. It's a vowel and two consonants because you can never prove all. The only way to prove all is do a handstand. Let your feet dangle in a sea of space and hold planet Earth up in your hands. That's what all means. All rights then becomes the verb. and, conjunction, interest. Again, no earth contract. And that becomes a pronoun because of the word and. So interest becomes the adverb, making in to become an adverb. And is a conjunction. To becomes the pronoun, thus the adverb, making real. Re means no. Contract as an adjective of the property, pro, no, per, person, ty, contract. As a pronoun, no, set forth as an adverb verb in Emerson Corporation. And even though, now when they write corporation with an abbreviation and put a period, it breaks the continuance because it's a abbreviation. Then you go back